on citizenship and immigration. Members and witnesses may speak in the official language of their choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor English or French. If interpretation is lost, please inform me immediately and we will ensure interpretation is properly restored before resuming the proceedings. The raise hand feature at the bottom of the screen can be used at any time if you wish to speak or alert the chair. Today, we are resuming the study on recruitment and acceptance rates of foreign students. On behalf of the committee, I would like to welcome the Honorable Sean Fraser, Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Welcome, Minister. Thanks for coming second time this week. And he's also joined by the officials from IRCC. I would like to welcome Marianne Campbell-Jarvis, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic and Program Policy, Daniel Mills, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Operations, Corinne Prince, Acting Assistant Deputy Minister, Settlement and Integration Sector, and also Madame Pemi Gill, Director General, International Network. I would just like to make few comments for the benefit of our witnesses today. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. When you are ready to speak, you can click on the microphone icon to activate your mic. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. Interpretation in this video conference will work very much like in a regular committee meeting. When speaking, please speak slowly and clearly. When you are not speaking, your mic should be on mute. Witnesses have 5 minutes for opening remarks. During rounds of questioning, I will raise colored time cards to the screen to indicate when 1 minute is remaining, 30 seconds, and a stop sign asking you to wrap up. With this, I would like to welcome Minister Fraser, who will begin our discussion in this panel with 5 minutes of opening remarks, followed by a round of questioning. Welcome, Minister. Floor is yours. You can please begin.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Bon matin à vous tous. It's good to be back and to be back so soon. And I know the studies on international students. I've got a particular focus on Francophone international students during my remarks. Happy to take questions on whichever issue you'd like. I would like to begin by acknowledging that I'm joining you here from the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. Les étudiants étrangers francophones sont une source de talent.
Francophone international students are a key source of talent to help support Canada's future economic growth and counteract the country's aging demographic and shrinking labour markets. They also strengthen our ongoing efforts to reach the target of 4.4% of French-speaking immigrant admissions by 2023.
Open doors to Francophone international students are part of a larger study to increase opportunities for French-speaking and bilingual newcomers to settle in and contribute to our communities throughout the country. L'immigration francophone et bilingue est la clé.
Francophone and bilingual immigration is key to our future, and we're going forward on these priorities every time it's possible. In 2020, Francophones represented 3.26% of immigrants admitted to Canada outside of Quebec, compared to 2.8% in 2019.
0.4% target for French-speaking immigrants outside of Quebec. We've introduced targeted measures such as awarding more points for Francophone candidates in the express entry system, investing in Francophone settlement services to support the attraction and retention, and developing an uncapped stream for French-speaking essential workers and students in last year's temporary resident to permanent residence program, which resulted in 7,000 applications. Immigration is a shared jurisdiction, and at least 7 different jurisdictions have a Francophone target or provincial nominee program stream that is specifically dedicated to attracting Francophone and bilingual talent. Les étudiants étrangers sont d'excellents.
Foreign students are excellent candidates for permanent residency, and we've intensified our efforts abroad to promote and to attract Francophone immigrants and students.
Study permit process in countries like Morocco and Senegal. We're also looking at expanding this program to more countries where we are able to make easier the process of applying to become an international student to Canada. Our efforts are starting to have an impact, but I'm going to be the first to acknowledge that we're always going to have more to do. I'm currently examining additional ways to improve pathways to permanent residency, as was required by my mandate letter for international students and for Francophone candidates, including by developing more flexible selection tools through the express entry system. Il est extrêmement important.
It's extremely important for potential students and for our country that the Canadian government and IRCC be careful to treat each application in a fair way without discrimination.
Applicants are always given the opportunity to provide documents and any other relevant information to support their application. A decision is made only after all of the factors have been considered. Parmi les exigences à respecter,
among the requirements, the applicants for a student permit have to show that they have the financial resources necessary to pay for their studies and to supply their needs in Canada. So fraudulent applications are also important concerns for us.
This issue, and IRCC engages in outreach with partners and at public events around the world to better explain our visa requirements. In particular, we've been working closely with the Quebec Bureau in Senegal and Morocco, which I mentioned previously, to promote studies in Quebec for prospective students from West Africa and the Maghreb. Même si les taux d'approbation et des refus,
even approval and refusal rates can fluctuate, I can say that the rate of refusal to African students in Quebec and outside Quebec decreased in 2021 in relation to former years.
Country, we're working to improve programs and application outcomes for students. In several of my conversations with Minister Boulay in Quebec in particular, and indeed with several members of this committee, we've had the opportunity to discuss some of the issues, such as compliance reporting and proof of funds requirements. And I'm always open to feedback and ideas on how to identify roadblocks and identify solutions as well in order to achieve our goals more effectively. Pour conclure, je tiens à assurer de nouveau.
In conclusion, I want to again assure members of the committee that the government is committed to an equitable application of immigration procedures in all of its programs. We will continue to assess all student permit applications from all around the world against the same criteria on the individual merits of each case.
The recommendations from this committee to inform the work that we're undertaking and to attract and retain French-speaking students, which is an important component of our broader strategy to grow Francophone immigration and better protect the demographic weight of Francophones in Canada. Thank you, Madam Chair. My colleagues from the department and I would be pleased to answer the committee's questions. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
Minister, we will now go into our round of questioning, and we will start our first round with Mr. Reddycop. Mr. Reddycop, you will have 6 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, for showing up here in person. I appreciate that. I first want to raise a case with you of Edward Galabaya, who's in my riding. I've written on an urgent basis to your colleague, Minister of Public Safety, who has issued a deportation order for Mr. Galabaya back to Uganda. Mr. Galabaya is a gay man, and because he is gay, he faces an arrest warrant upon immediate return to Uganda next week. He will go to prison. And your government expresses compassion for gay and lesbian refugees, and so I would implore you to talk to your colleague, Minister Mendocino, directly for me on this. Can you commit to doing everything within your power? I have a file here for you to look at.
Look, I won't pass judgment on a specific case. If you send the details to me electronically or leave it with me at the end of the meeting, I'd be more than happy to take a look and specifically dig into the file.
Thank you so much. And Madam Chair, I'll pass the rest of my time to Mrs. Falk.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here 2 meetings in a row. I know I've sat on other committees where ministers haven't made themselves so available, so I hope that this is a trend that you will continue to make yourself available for this committee. On our last meeting on Tuesday, you had shared with this committee that the department is back to service standards for processing times. And so what became clear and more evident to the committee is this only applies to new applications. So, Minister, I'm wondering if you can clarify for this committee the expected processing times for existing backlogged applications in each respective immigration and visa stream.
So there are many immigration streams. It would probably take the duration of the meeting, and I'd have to rely on the advice of my officials to get you specific timelines for them.
Perfect. Would you just provide them to the committee by the beginning of March 1st?
We'll provide whatever information we can on each of the specific streams and expected wait times that are available. And in fact, I'd point out we're actually going to, and I announced a couple of weeks ago, we're going to be broadcasting the actual service standard times for real programs on our website. Right now there's a problem because the service standard is reflected but not the actual processing times, and as everyone knows, we've been significantly impacted by the pandemic, so we plan to proactively share that information to the extent we can provide it with the committee.
Perfect. So, if it'll be online, I would
Sorry
absolutely...
for interrupting. All questions should be directed through the chair.
Through the chair, I would absolutely appreciate it if you would provide any information that's going out to the community or via online to our committee as well. And I'm just wondering, through you, Chair, to the Minister, what direction, if any, has been given to the department from you to address those backlogged applicants?
To address the processing times and the inventory of cases as quickly as we possibly can. It's essential to reflect on the fact, though, that you can't snap your fingers and make things happen more quickly without resources. And we have been working with the Minister of Finance and successfully achieved $85 million in the recent economic and fiscal update. We're going to continue to pursue the resources necessary to expedite all of the cases that are in the inventory to the extent possible.
So is it fair to say that the government, because the government has given a dollar figure, they believe that that will fix the situation? I'm just looking for direct... I mean, we all know if there's no direction given through ideas of action and that type of thing, that there will not be... Like, is the department just hiring more people? What resources... We talk about the monetary, but what are we actually doing to achieve the alleviation of the backlogs?
Look, really good question. So there's been 500 staff that have been added to the department to boost processing. The $85 million is going to have different impacts on 5 different specific streams. Work permits, study permits, and PR cards are all going to be back to a service standard this year, probably sooner than the end of this year, but I can commit to that specifically. We're going to see improvements on proof of citizenship, as well as the processing of temporary residence visas. I don't have a specific exact time at which different standards will be, but to the extent we can provide clarity, we will. But I want to point out that in addition, some of the resources will be going to expedite the deployment of certain digital functionalities, like the PR case tracker that just came online, like the digital intake for 17 different lines of business by this summer. I could go on, but I know I don't want to take your time, member.
Thank you. I do know in the announcement on January 31st, it was indicated that the IRCC is expanding the use of advanced data analytics. And this committee, and I'm not sure if you're following this committee at all on our meetings that we've had, but we have heard serious concerns from witnesses in this study about the current use of the Chinook software in the processing of visa applications. So with these concerns about discrimination and the lack of oversight, what justification is there at this specific time to expand the use of artificial intelligence?
So, Madam Chair, I've got 1 minute. If this comes up again, I can elaborate more. I expect it may. And I do follow the committee very closely, and I thank you for your work and for highlighting this. So 2 points. One, we have to make a decision if we're going to embrace digital technologies in the immigration system. I think we should, and then I think we should take great care to make sure those are deployed in an effective and equitable way. The Chinook system, however, is not a very complicated system that uses artificial intelligence. It's a spreadsheet. It's a Microsoft Excel-based visual aid that provides the same information that IRCC officers would otherwise have to dig into either a paper file or 8 different windows on a computer. And we've seen an increase in productivity of 18 to 30% based on the ability to have all the same information on one screen. But to be absolutely clear, it's a human being, an officer, that still makes the decision on the basis of the same information that they would have with or without Chinook.
Thank you.
Before we go to the next member, I would like to remind all the members that today the appearance of the minister is in regards to the study which we are undertaking, recruitment and acceptance rate of foreign students in Quebec and Canada. I hope everyone stays within the scope of the study. So we will now proceed to Ms. Kaya Baga for 6 minutes. Ms. Kaya Baga, you can.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I'd like to thank the Minister again for taking the time to be here and respond to our questions in our committee. And also just want to congratulate him on what he tabled in the House this week as well on immigration. So I'd like to start with my first question around the study that we've been doing on African students from Francophone countries. I know that our government has had a strong plan to increase Francophone immigration across Canada. And given that 60% of Francophones are in Africa, what are your thoughts on the rate of refusals for African students in French-speaking countries? And given the numbers that we've seen, what plans would we have moving forward to correct that?
Merci, Madame Président.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it is necessary to increase the number of African newcomers. I think we have the possibility to increase the numbers for foreign students if we have a foreign student strategy for African people.
To welcome more people who can bring talent and make immense contributions to Canada as students and frankly as permanent residents. When I do look at some of the numbers, one of the things that I do want to point out is the difference for students who come from African nations to Quebec and not to Quebec. There's a 2% gap between. They're similar. For students who come from French-speaking nations in certain regions of Africa and Anglophone students who come from similar regions in Africa, there's a small gap, but it is about a 5% gap. So there's an issue that we can look at. It's not as big as I originally thought when I first read coverage on this, but when I look at it, I think we can make massive improvements because the experience, I mentioned Morocco and Senegal during my opening remarks not by coincidence. When we introduced the student direct stream, we saw a significant increase in the approval rates of students who came from those West African French-speaking nations. When I talk to Minister Boulay or my Francophone colleagues, they want me to do more because we have to protect the demographic weight of Quebec and Canada, of Francophones in Canada, and this is a grand opportunity for us to advance those ends.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. In recent years, Canada has been attracting a growing number of international students due to their confidence in our education system. I'd like to ask the Minister what his thoughts are on the proposal of extending 20 hours per week for international students, particularly in this time that we're facing labor shortage in different parts of the country.
Just before I answer, Madam Chair, there might be just a bit of a problem with the sound that came through. I did hear the question, but vocally, not through the system. So I'll answer the question, though, and if it's a problem, I'll let you know. So in the short term, I think this is something we need to be looking at to help contribute to the solutions to the labor shortage. We've not made an official decision, but I think we need all hands on deck to deal with the economic opportunity if we fill these jobs so we can have an even stronger economic recovery than we've already seen. In the long term, I want to be careful, though, because it's really important that we issue study permits for people who are coming to study and don't promote people who are seeking to use a study permit stream to come for economic purposes when those streams exist for specific economic purposes. There's a particular issue, though, that I'm deeply concerned about with students who might benefit from co-op placements or work-integrated learning placements. I don't want our rules around a limit on hours of work to jeopardize the learning opportunity through these institutions. I do want to maintain a focus on study permits for students who are coming for the primary purpose of studying, but in the short term, I do think we need to look at every solution we can to help solve the labor shortage, and I think this is one particular proposal you've raised that I appreciate very much and need to do a little more thinking on before we make a final decision.
How much time do I have, Madam Speaker? 2 minutes. And through you, Madam Chair, what are your thoughts on including international students in the summer works program, as suggested by a witness from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, since since they follow the same curriculum and acquire the same knowledge and expertise while they're in school?
Look, similar answer to my last response. I think if there's unique or innovative solutions where we can get more people working in jobs, one of the problems that we're facing in the Canadian economy right now is also the biggest opportunity we've had potentially in my lifetime. We've had literally amongst the strongest economic recoveries from COVID of any developed economy in the world. At the same time, though we have more people working than before the pandemic, GDP has exceeded pre-pandemic levels, we still have the largest labor gap in my lifetime, 900,000 jobs available at the end of the year. If we want to protect the livelihoods, not just of these people who would be coming to work, but the Canadians who are working for businesses that have been sitting worrying whether their employer would survive COVID-19, we need to look at getting that labor here as quickly as possible to make sure that we grow our economy to provide the services we count on, but that we also protect the jobs of Canadians who are working in those businesses now.
Through you, do you think that they should have the same access to settlement services as it is for PR holders to ensure that the smooth transition?
I think in some instances we need to do more to provide strong settlement services. I think there's a unique issue around international students because, and I'm out of time, so I'll say we need to also partner with institutions and provincial governments who have responsibilities for them. I think there's room to improve, but I think there's some unique considerations for students in particular.
So my last question is around. Yep. My last question. A number of witnesses talked about racism experiencing, that they think there's some racism involved in the refusal rates for African students who have a higher rate of refusals. Do you think that they're right in their comments?
Look.
Time is up, so maybe you will have opportunity in the second round. We will now proceed to Mr. Brunel Desap. Mr. Brunel Desap, you will have 6 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Minister. I'm very happy to see you again here at the committee. I will go right to the heart of the matter. A report last spring to the Information Commissioner shows that IRCC received 3 times more ATIP requests than all other ministers, departments, rather.
Okay.
It's okay. So now I'm on floor. Do I have to be on French when I speak, on the French channel? No. Okay. So I'll start again. We're starting our 6 minutes. Here we go. Mr. Minister, a special report of the Information Commissioner last spring shows that IRCC received 3 times more ATIP requests than any other, all the combined other federal institutions. So is your department transparent, in your opinion?
It's a factor that results really of the fact that we deal with a lot more people at IRCC than all of the departments. We deal with millions of people.
La question c'est est-ce que vous trouvez que votre ministère est transparent?
But the question is, do you think your department is transparent?
Yes, but I do think there are some capacity constraints that we need to improve upon.
Allez-vous publier publiquement?
Will you explicitly publish the directions given to agents and the rates of acceptation for student visas and permits?
Happy to share any information about acceptance and refusal rates for programs.
Et les directives données aux agents et les critères d'acceptation.
And the directions given to agents and the criteria for student permits and visas you will be providing publicly?
That so long as they don't compromise the integrity of the process and the ability of the system to function or the privacy details, I believe we should proactively share whatever information we can that doesn't compromise our ability to have a functioning system.
OK, parfait, je retiens celle-là. Monsieur le ministre, est-ce que l'intention de...
Perfect. Mr. Minister, does the intention of staying in Canada, is that harmful to foreign students' potential?
Issue here, and I appreciate it was a very short question. I think that there's a good reason why the rule exists, but I think we need to pursue certain changes, specifically flexibility in the express entry system and partnership with certain provinces so we can actually establish a pathway to permanent residency for those that we want to stay. But there is a good reason why we have a need to return when you're applying for a temporary basis to come to Canada.
Mais pourtant, Monsieur le ministre, dans la loi, je vais vous la lire.
However, Minister, in the Act, and I'll read it to you, 22(2) of the Immigration Act, I will quote, the intention that they have to settle in Canada does not prevent someone to come if there's evidence that the person's left Canada at the end of the authorized period. The Act says that it shouldn't be harmful. You're saying that these people are important for the country, but they're refused when they want to come. So can you explain that to me?
Students in particular, there's a unique issue, and if I understand the question, stop me if I'm off track here.
Don't worry, I'll stop you.
Merci beaucoup. Je sais. So the issue right now is that we have somewhere in the ballpark of 8,000 valid study permits that could be apparent at any given time. We have 432,000 spaces for permanent residence. We can't have every single international student automatically qualify for permanent residence. I want a lot of them to stay because they have incredible economic, cultural, social outcomes. One of the issues is that we have to select amongst the pool to make sure that we have space for other economic streams. So I think we need to improve the pathway to permanent residency for those who want to stay, but it's not possible for us to have every single student qualify for permanent residence.
So now I'm interrupting you. So we have students, we have evidence that there are foreign Francophone students, especially from Western Africa. You talked about Senegal, Morocco, you could have said Cameroon, Ivory Coast, who receive different reasons every time they apply. But one of them is that the fear that they don't return to their country after that. I understand you want to do the maximum possible, but currently it's a huge challenge for those people. And it hurts us in Quebec and also for Francophone institutions and also Francophone institutions outside Quebec who are fighting to get these people. But I understand that we'll be working together on that. You said that you listened to the committee's sessions carefully and you are eager to get the recommendations of this committee, and I think you're sincere to say that. But about 10 witnesses said that they agree to creating an ombudsman position at IRCC. I asked you the question last Tuesday. I don't know whether you've reflected on that since last Tuesday to know whether you agree with the creation of that position, yes or no.
I want to see what this committee actually reports back at the conclusion of the study. I don't want to prejudge what other testimony they may hear. I'll take every recommendation, including what you decide on an ombudsperson at this committee, seriously. I'm not prepared to sort of commit to one decision or another before the committee has had the benefit of all the evidence that may come forward, let alone myself having the benefit of that same evidence. So I look forward to what recommendations you may have.
And so if it's a recommendation of the committee, would you make that a priority?
Automatic basis, I don't just implement whatever recommendations that other parliamentarians make to me. I take them seriously and consider them, but I actually need to take that consideration.
And quickly, you talk about treating applications fairly. How do you explain the data of your own department that shows a disparity between Francophone institutions in Quebec and Anglophone education institutions in Quebec in terms of the rate of acceptance, rather?
Here, I think I'm out of time, and I just want to clarify, perhaps on the second round, Monsieur Brunel, c'est possible pour révisiter.
Would it be possible to go back to this issue, Mr. Brunel, Giuseppe, in the second round? I have 0 seconds left. So you could give us a written response. We'll be happy to get that. Thank you. We can do that.
Proceed to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you will have 6 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the Minister for coming to our committee. On page 11 and 12 of the Polera report on anti-racism, it indicated that there's a widespread reference of African nations by officials as dirty 30 nations, stereotype Nigerians as particularly corrupt and untrustworthy. And on page 13 of the report, there are concerns that racism impact the outcome of decisions of immigration applicants by officers. It cites that the application of discriminatory rules of assessing immigration applicants are different from that of other nations. And for example, additional financial requirements for Nigeria is one example that was cited. Based on this, is the minister concerned that the Canada Student Direct Stream requires students to have a guaranteed income certificate of $10,000, but the new Nigeria Express program requires a student to have $30,000 in their account for 6 months?
So first of all, and thank you for this important question, any sort of systemic racism or bias within any government operation is completely unacceptable. The results of that Polaris study are deeply concerning to me. They were the result of a proactive exercise from the department to figure out whether there was internal discrimination, and we're doing what we can to root out racism within the department, not just internal to the department, but the effect of our policies, which is what your question tests on. When I learned of this issue, I was actually quite concerned, but I've received an answer that was actually satisfactory to me. In Nigeria, the higher threshold is actually a lower total than what other nations students from other nations are required to provide. Though it's 10,000, they also need to make good on proof of funds for the cost of their tuition, the average of which, and look, my officials can correct me if I'm off, I believe is a total of 43,000. But the issue is we don't necessarily have financial partners on the ground in Nigeria, so to have the proof of funds of 30,000 is more equitable when you look across the requirement in other countries that you have not only 10,000, but also the proof of funds to cover the cost of an international student's tuition as well. I looked into this when I learned about it because I was quite concerned, but I saw that it wasn't quite the problem that I thought it was when I first learned of the details.
Why didn't the officials or the government actually just added Nigeria to the student direct stream with the same level playing field of the requirements as other nations?
So to use a student direct stream, we need to work with financial institutions on the ground, and we don't necessarily have the partners of similar strength in every nation across the world. I'm very bullish on the use of the student direct stream to actually improve the quality of the application process for international students. To the extent we can find those partners and expand student direct stream to other countries, it's something I actively want to pursue because I've seen very real success in the increase of approval rates in jurisdictions where we have been able to deploy it. So I'd describe it as a work in progress.
Well, the rate of approval for Nigerian students is at 12%, Minister, compared to the top 10 source countries. So it is nowhere near, and there are applications where students have made the application met the onerous financial requirements and were rejected, because they assumed that somehow the authenticity of the bank statement is false, even though when a student presents a documentation from the bank verifying the amount of dollars that they have in the system. The answer that the minister provided is still concerning. It doesn't answer all my questions, and I don't have time right now to get into all of it. I would love to sit down with the minister and the officials to further explore this.
I think that would be a healthy exercise, Ms. Kwan. I would be willing to have a meeting with you on that issue.
Well, thank you. Because at the beginning, after you were appointed, you also offered meetings on a couple of issues that were priorities for me. And I sent in that information right away, requesting for the meetings. It's never happened. I didn't even get a response from you or your officials with respect to that. So I hope this will actually be followed up on. On the Chinook tool that was developed by officials internally without consultation with stakeholders, is the minister concerned that racist attitudes cited in the Polaris report could be incorporated into the development of the Chinook tool?
Not with respect to Chinook, but I am very concerned about the potential for racism to creep into any of the Government of Canada's operations, including in my department. But just to be clear on what Chinook is and Chinook isn't, Chinook doesn't have...
Sorry, Minister, I don't need to know that. I already know. But let me ask this question.
One person at a time.
The Chinook system was introduced in 2018, and it presents risk factors or word flags for applications. Could the minister provide those word flags to the committee?
There's nothing that Chinook presents that isn't already presented in ordinary files. It's a display tool for IRCC officers to see all of the information they would normally have access to. So I'm unclear on what red flags that you're referring to in the Chinook system.
My understanding is that the Chinook system uses word flags for certain things. Maybe I'll ask that question to the officials. They might be more familiar with it. Let me ask the minister this question on dual intent. Witnesses indicate that dual intent provision is confounding and contradictory. On the one hand, it says to the students that you need to identify if you have an intent to stay, and then if they identify that, then they often will get a rejection for the application because the official will cite that they fear that they would not return. So does the minister agree that it doesn't actually make any sense?
I would not agree that it doesn't make any sense. And I'm being told to stop. I think there's room for improvement, and I think that's why in my mandate letter there's a requirement I establish a pathway to permanent residency for international students, which I'm very excited about and happy to discuss further with this committee.
Thank you, Minister. We will now go to our second round of questioning. Just a reminder to members again, all questions should be directed through the chair. So we will now proceed with our second round of questioning. Mr. Seaback, you have 5 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please begin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Minister, I want to pick up on actually where Ms. Kwan was. When you look at rejection rates, and in particular, I'm going to talk about Nigeria, the rejection rate was 40% in 2015. It's now at 12% in 2020. So you said today that you thought things are getting better. For people in Nigeria, in fact, it's getting much worse. Then, when we look at the fact that the Chinook tool came in 2018, this acceleration of rejections seems to have increased. And you said earlier today in your testimony, we're doing what we can to try and fix this. I think you might be trying, but it's not working. I want to understand, and I think this committee needs to understand for this report, exactly what the Chinook tool does. We have had people come into this committee and say, we're trying to figure out what it does, but we're not 100% sure. So will the minister today commit to tabling a document that explains exactly how the Chinook tool works, what it assesses, what key terms or key flags are used, and if the department has studied whether or not, since the implementation of Chinook, rejection rates have continued to increase?
I think it would be a very healthy thing, given this conversation, to give whatever information we can about how Chinook operates, and to the extent we can answer all of the questions you just lined out. I think it's a fair ask of you to have us table some kind of a document explaining what Chinook does. I may take the liberty to explain what it does not do, because it's clear there's a lot of concern around the use of artificial intelligence and potential discrimination. And look, to the extent this committee learns there is systemic discrimination with any of the tools we use, I want you to point it out to me, because that's not okay. I don't believe that the Chinook tool in particular is there, but I would be more than pleased to provide whatever information we can on Chinook.
Thank you very much. So, Minister, one of the other things that seems to be going on, there is a bit of an issue with educational consultants around the world and helping the processing or allegedly helping to process these applications. And in one of the reports that was submitted to the committee, you look at, there was a study done in Australia, and 50% of these small agencies that were being used to do these applications, they accounted for only 2% of the successfully delivered enrollments. So there's a problem. Many have come to this committee and said we need to establish a framework of oversight for education agents around the world. And one person, suggested, in fact, that they could be linked to, reputable law firms or et cetera. Is the department doing anything about this issue? And if so, what?
So the answer to your question is yes. So for folks who work within Canada, we've got the recently established College of Immigration Consultants for people who are in Canada. I think you can appreciate providing oversight to foreign actors who are setting up these cottage industries that lead, frankly, to the abuse of certain students who are treated completely unfairly without the support they need. We're working on the ground to provide as much information as we can to potential applicants. To the extent you have suggestions, this would be a very, very helpful point for the committee to do its work, to provide recommendations on what we can do to boost oversight, because, frankly, I am disturbed by the abuse of people who are trying to defraud the immigration system in Canada to make a few quick bucks at the cost of students who are suffering greatly. It's not fair. We need to end it and protect these vulnerable students, and that's something that we absolutely must do together.
Well, the committee certainly is going to look into that, but what I'd like to know is, has the department started to look into it? Do you have a plan to try and create some kind of framework to oversee these education agents?
So the answer is yes. Within Canada, same institution...
That's not where the big problem is, Minister. The big problem is outside of Canada. That's where people who are giving $1,500 to them to process an application is an incredible amount of money. And, with a 2% success rate, this is a problem. is the department going to look at establishing a framework to deal with overseas agents?
Yes. So I got partway through my question. For people who are overseas, right now the opportunities that we have are to work with prospective applicants to share information, to warn them about this practice. We don't have the, as you can appreciate, the legal authority to establish a framework in another country to regulate a profession that is located physically in another country. If there are strategies that come out of this study, this is one area I am watching because it's disgusting. Some of the behavior that I see, where people don't just defraud the system. There's fraudulent letters that go out so people can then get a commission at a private college that has a much higher tuition. This is a very real problem that is impacting real people and real communities. I want to solve it, and I can use your help.
Minister, time is up. We will now proceed to Mr. Al-Khoury. Mr. Al-Khoury, you will have 5 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please begin.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Minister, for your generosity in coming to see us and answer our question and to give explanations. Minister, Canada is known that for treating any file that it doesn't recognize color of the skin or the country of origin, and I'm very happy that you've come to confirm that. But I'd like to note, given that it's an absolute priority and a principle for you personally as Minister of Immigration and for Canada, to ensure us that all agents in all embassies subscribe to this principle. That's part A. And part B, I know that my colleagues are asking questions about financial considerations for foreign students. One of the criteria of approval of the visa for foreign students is that of sufficient funds. Could you explain once and for all, so that this can be very clear, how the department manages or treats this financial criteria and analyzes it for people coming from Africa without discrimination? Thank you.
First, Mr. Al-Khoury, thank you for describing the sort of reputation and attitude that I think Canadians have taken. But it's not enough that we don't see the color of another person's skin. We need to understand by looking at the fact that people who don't look like me are treated differently, that we have to put in unique measures to prevent that systemic discrimination. And I think it's really important that we actively consider how people who may live with different intersectionalities are discriminated against in a different way, and then introduce policies that overcome that discrimination and not assume that the exact same treatment treats everyone the same, because we know it does not. We know it does not. That's why we have to introduce particular measures that prevent this kind of systemic discrimination in every department in the Government of Canada. With respect to your question on the proof of funds for students who are coming from Africa, we work with provinces and to identify what proof of funds they will need to get by within their community. We need to know that they can cover their tuition and they have expenses that will allow them to live, because we don't want to create a system that promotes people to come to Canada only to see them fail when we get here. So the methods that we use varies by country, based sometimes on the relationship we have with financial institutions in those countries. We've seen massive success with the student direct stream because it allows for quicker and more accurate verifying of the financial capacity of students who are coming here, and those who can meet those eligibility criteria have their applications approved more quickly. Partnering with financial institutions in countries where we don't have as strong a relationship can not only it can significantly delay the process of application and lead to a higher refusal rate if we don't have certainty that people have the means to succeed once they land in Canada.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, do you think we have to increase the hours of work for foreign students? And how can we balance that with their need to live and not have them decide to work more because they're making more money? And I can say that that happened with me personally when I was a student at the university. I had some close friends, and we were always in the same faculty. But when they started earning more money, they started ignoring their studies. do you take this kind of situation in consideration if you decide, after the request of the committee, to increase the number of hours of work for foreign students?
Important, and I'm glad you brought your personal experience to bear because I think it illustrates the question that I wrestle with every day on this particular issue. The purpose of a study permit is to bring people who want to study at a legitimate learning institution so they can develop their skills, potentially even apply to become a permanent resident subsequently. If we increase or remove the cap on hours altogether through a study permit, I expect what we're going to see is a lot of people would then try to come in not for the purpose of studying, but for the purpose of working. We have other immigration streams that are designed specifically to allow for people to come here to work. I do think because of the urgent nature of dealing with the labor shortage, we need to look at all options to get people to work in the short term. But I think we have to maintain our focus to ensure whatever we do on the limit of hours worked, it's to promote that person's ability to gain a quality education in Canada so we can protect the integrity of the international students program. In particular, I have concerns on work-integrated learning opportunities, and I'm being cut off, but you can tell this is an issue I have a lot to say about. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We will now proceed to Mr. Brunel Dissep for 2.5 minutes. Mr. Brunel Dissep, please go ahead.
So I have two questions. The majority of witnesses representing institutions of higher learning have confirmed to us that when a foreign student is refused a visa, they cannot get their tuition reimbursed. Do you agree with this kind of practice?
In the vast majority of instances, they don't need to pay their tuition, but before they're able to come here to study. There was a unique situation in the pandemic where people were allowed to begin their studies overseas because of some of the challenges around travel. But I want to make sure that we protect the students' interest and not start collecting money from people who don't get to study. I think if there's examples you have...
What's happening is that because the IRCC deadlines are too long, they'll say, well, I'm going to start studying because I will be accepted. And then IRCC refuses their study permit, and then they're not reimbursed because it's a problem because the universities are collecting the money and the students don't have their study permit from IRCC at that point.
If the issue is about delays in processing, we bent over backwards last year as a department and got 99% of the study permit applications processed on time to allow people to study. We've put some of that $85 million I've referred to towards expediting study permits so students can get here to prevent this kind of an issue from ever coming up. So to the extent there are problems in the system with specific rules that we need to change, I'd be interested if the committee could point them out in their report.
Merci, monsieur.
Thank you, Minister. You talked about 4.4% as a target for Francophone immigration Canada. I met the FCFA today, and they said that target was never achieved since it was put in place in 2003. Can you explain to us why that target was never achieved and how you will succeed in doing so?
I've got, there's certain things that have been done around the express entry system to increase the points that you get if you are, can speak French or Francophone. Je pense que c'est...
I think that there is a big opportunity to improve the express entry system by increasing the flexibility in the system.
6,000 approximately Francophones in the inventory in our system. If we create flexibility, we boost settlements in Francophone communities, settlement service supports in Francophone communities, and a flexibility that allows us to specifically increase, I would treat 4.4% as not the ceiling, but the basement that we should achieve so we can continue to increase the number of Francophones.
Sorry for interrupting. Time is up. Sorry for interrupting. Time is up. We will now proceed to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 2.5 minutes. You can go ahead.
I want to quickly go back to the issue of dual intent. The minister said that he's looking into that. What specific measures is he doing or looking into to address the dual intent concerns?
So we have some policy work to do to identify the right solution forward, considering working with provinces to identify students that they may wish to have stay. We want to make sure, again, if we look at flexibility in the express entry system for people who are studying now that we could have come here. I do have some concerns that I've not solved the issues for yet when we look at students who may need to come to study to prevent a lot of students coming with the purpose of staying permanently by claiming asylum, for example, when we have different streams for people who are coming for purposes other than studying. So we do have some policy work to solve this problem, and that policy work is not yet done, but it's something that we're working on now.
When does the minister expect that work will be completed? And will he share the information of what he's looking at and what are some of those difficulties with the committee?
I think I don't have a date for an announcement scheduled or anything like that, because I don't want to presuppose the process when I haven't actually conducted the full-throated consultation that is necessary to do something like this. It's a mandate letter commitment for me to establish a pipeline to permanent residency for international students. This particular question of dual intent is going to be a part of it, but I don't want to presuppose what I'm going to hear from the consultation I'm going to have to conduct before I've had the opportunity to talk to stakeholder organizations.
Well, thank you. The minister just said that he identified some concerns that he has not yet resolved. So I was wondering if he could share that information, but it doesn't sound like he's going to. Perhaps he'll share that with stakeholders. Let me ask the minister this question. To ensure this Chinook tool is fair, will the minister commit to doing an independent assessment of the Chinook tool?
So I think that a healthy starting point would be to have make good on the commitment I made to Mr. Seaback in this meeting to have this committee do the independent assessment by providing you all of the information we have, and I think that would be a really healthy exercise.
Well, actually, having committees look at this and then therefore looking at some of the issues and concerns would certainly be something within the scope of the study. But for a in-depth, independent assessment of the Chinook tool, that should be done by someone who's trained to do that work, not members of parliament. Will the minister commit to ensuring that there would be an independent assessment of the Chinook tool?
Before I commit to having a third party do an independent assessment, I need to have it demonstrated to me that there in fact is an increase in refusal rates that's significant, statistically significant as a result of the use of the tool. If the committee concludes that in fact there is discrimination based on Chinook, and I agree with that assessment, then I would be in a position to say, yes, we should look at that. But until I see that assessment, I wouldn't be prepared to do it.
Sorry for interrupting. Time is up. We will now end our round of questioning with Mr. Helen for 3 minutes and then the Liberals for 3 minutes. So that will end that first panel. So, Mr. Helen, you have 3 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, through you, I wanted to touch up on a point that Ms. Kwan had brought up and continue with that. And it's something that I hear about all the time. I get thousands of emails about trust and leadership within this minister's department. There was a report that came out last year about racism. We haven't heard much about any action being taken on it. One point that Ms. Kwan brought up is about the ignoring of emails and any contact with the minister or the departments. We've heard from Afghans who have said the same thing. There's just ignored emails, auto replies. Veterans groups, generals that have been retired have been reaching out. Everything has been ignored when it comes to backlogs. There is no real communication on what's going on. I've raised questions, Madam Chair, in question period about the frustrations my constituents and people that have been contacting me have faced, and we've gotten replies from the minister such as, these are theatrics, or this is just made up or falsified kind of theater that we're doing. Yet what we're doing is actually venting the frustrations that we feel constantly because of the failure of leadership within the Department of IRCC and any response from this minister. And, I've gotten a few responses after seeing the minister's replies, even in question period, and those are the questions that I have to raise again, that, there's this anti-racism committee that we've heard nothing about, and people are concerned. People are concerned that nothing is being taken seriously by and being brushed off. I will ask this question again because I think it's very fair that people have lost faith in the Liberal government over the last 6 years when it comes to immigration. We've heard many times that money is being thrown at things, but things have not improved, and we can see that by the backlog being at almost 2 million now. And people have questions seriously that are asking, how serious does this government take racism when they could not address blackface from the Prime Minister himself and not seeing any changes from this anti-racism report that was already tabled?
Madam Chair, I take it I have the remaining minute to answer the lengthy question. So first, on your question about people losing faith in the government over immigration, I'd point out that we have embraced immigration in a way that no government in Canada's history ever has. Literally, on Monday of this week, I tabled the most ambitious immigration levels plan in the history of our government, and we're going to make good on it. Madam Chair, I believe I have the floor, and I'd ask that the honourable member give me the opportunity to answer, and I'll take the extra few seconds that I've been interrupted. On processing times and transparency, I literally made a public announcement just a couple of weeks ago to lay out in a specific detail all of the measures. Your colleagues have thanked me here for showing up in person twice this week. I believe I'm here on supplementary estimates in a couple of weeks again. I'm going to keep showing up in a spirit of transparency. And if you'll allow me the few extra seconds, I'll extend my stay to provide a full answer, Madam Chair, because the member raises a real issue around dealing with racism in the department. I was really stunned by the results of that survey. It's deeply upsetting because when we have, Madam Chair.
Interrupting time is
Madam
up.
Chair.
Sorry for interrupting. Time is up. So we will have to proceed to our next.
I would stay to finish the answer if the committee.
Okay,
I'm at the will of the committee if
okay?
you'd like to hear the answer.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. On this issue, I think it's important that we know where this came from, and it's a real problem when I see the accusations and the not accusations, the statements that people have experienced racism from within the department. The study that people have referred to, the Polaris survey, came from a position where after the murder of George Floyd by police officers in Minneapolis, the department wanted to do something to understand if they too had systemic discrimination. They put out the employee survey and they learned that there were very real problems. They established an anti-racism task force within the department. It's clear you have concerns that you'd like to have more details about what that task force is doing, and I think it's fair that we should provide those details when we have more than 30 seconds to get into them. This has to be addressed seriously, not just internal to the department, but the outward-facing politics. But internal to the department, if people believe they're going to have a culture where they can't be accepted, we are losing out on some of the best talent that Canada has to offer. It's not just unfair to those employees, it's also unfair to those employees, but the work of the Government of Canada suffers if we don't have equitable places of work. This is something that I am completely committed to, have asked for regular updates from the department on, and would be happy to provide information in writing at some point.
Can we have that stuff tabled? Can we have those findings tabled in this committee?
Yes, there's not a final report of the task force yet, but I think it would be
because
helpful
I think
if we
that's
provided a summary on where we're at.
The question is that no one's been reprimanded, no one has been disciplined, and people don't know any updates. So that's all I just wanted to add.
Chair,
okay, sorry for.
Thank you.
We have to proceed to our next member. Then maybe in the end we will provide you opportunity if there is anything data to be cleared or not. So we will now proceed to Mr. Dhaliwal. Mr. Dhaliwal, you will have. In the spirit of fairness, we will give you 4 minutes for your round of questioning. So, Mr. Dhaliwal, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, first of all, I want to congratulate the Minister for the 7,000 applications that he mentioned under the new pathway to permanent residency for the Francophonie students or Francophonie community. And I can tell you, Francophonie community in BC have very well received that announcement and the path. And the question to Minister is Minister planning to make this pathway permanent for all Francophones rather than just essential workers already in Canada and wanting to request the permanent residency?
Thanks to the member for the question. I too was enthusiastically in support of the TR to PR program. It was a response to a particular moment in time where we couldn't welcome people from outside of Canada and had to make sure that we could meet the needs of our communities and our economy during the pandemic when our border was closed to protect the public against the spread of COVID-19. We learned some really interesting lessons and are continuing to do an analysis on these kinds of programs. I think that there are lessons to be learned when I go forward with my pathway to establish permanent residency for people who are here on a temporary basis, people who are here to study. And in particular, I think there's some unique lessons we can learn to particularly welcome more Francophone international students through a similar mechanism. We haven't yet nailed down the precise mechanism to make sure that happens, but we're looking at those lessons to see if we can repeat the success to some degree as we establish a permanent program going forward.
Madam Chair, Minister also mentioned about the 4% of Francophone immigrant targets. It's my understanding that has never been attained, and how the Minister is planning to achieve that goal, and will he set a more ambitious target for the Francophone immigrants outside of Quebec.
Selon moi, c'est essentiel d'augmenter.
In my opinion, it's essential to increase the number of Francophone newcomers because the cultural identity of Canada includes Anglophones and Francophones side by side.
Really important that we do this to protect and promote the demographic weight of Francophones in Canada. This is part of who we are as a people. Right now, we've got an existing goal of 4.4%. As I said to Mr. Brunel-Duceppe, I don't treat this as a ceiling. What we're actually doing, boosting settlement services and Francophone communities to make sure that people, when they get here, are more likely to stay. Looking for flexibility in the express entry system. Working with our partners in the province of Quebec and with provinces outside of Quebec to help them develop some of the specific immigration streams for Francophones.
Point of order, Madam President. So we have no translation at the moment. We're talking about Francophones.
If you can please check.
Ah, c'est réglé?
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Oui,
good. Okay, good. Please proceed.
Peut-être que je vais essayer en français.
Maybe I'll try to answer in French. I'll take this opportunity to thank my counterpart in the Bloc Québécois for my French lessons. So it's essential. It's necessary to improve the quality of services of settlement, which is essential to increase the number of Francophone newcomers, so better settlement services. It's not just for foreign students, but for everyone. That's essential. It's essential to have more flexibility in the express entry system to facilitate the capacity of the government to welcome many Francophone newcomers.
There are some things that we have done. I think that this is a good subject for another conversation with the committee, as I see my chair is flagging. I have just a few seconds remaining here.
Madam Chair, Minister mentioned about settlement services, and it's my understanding, it's only available to people having PR, and the BC Francophone community is concerned about the other visa holders that are in British Columbia. Is Minister planning to offer those settlement services to other than PRs?
This is a question that requires partnership with provincial governments who deal with a lot, particularly when we're dealing with international students, which is the subject of this study. I think there's areas where we can cooperate with some of those provinces, but I think institutions also have an important role to play. I'm being shown that I've run out of time completely here, Mr. Dollawall, but if you would wish for a follow-up, I would be more than happy to provide information on what supports we can provide for folks who are here for a lengthy period of time that may not qualify for existing settlement services.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you, Minister. Sorry for interrupting you at many times, but in order to make sure everyone gets a fair chance of asking you the questions. So on behalf of the committee members, really want to thank you for appearing before this committee, taking out time of your busy schedule and being here twice in this week. So we really appreciate that. And thanks once again for presenting the levels in the Parliament this week. I think we need immigrants to make sure that we can get look into those labor shortage issues which we have been having. So with that, I suspend the meeting for 2 minutes so that we can allow the officials to do the sound check, and then we will proceed with the round of questioning. Thank you. Like to welcome the officials from the Department of Citizenship and Immigration. I would welcome Marianne Campbell-Jarvis, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic and Program Policy, Daniel Mills, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Operations, Corinne Prince, Acting Assistant Deputy Minister, Settlement and Integration Sector, Pammy Gill, Director General, International Network. I would like, on behalf of all the members, I would like to welcome our officials for appearing before this committee second time in a week. So we will start with our round of questioning, and our first round of questioning will start with Mr. Seebeck. Mr. Seebeck, you will have 6 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the generous allocation of 6 minutes. So some of the things that I've gone through, and I've looked at some of the approval rates for student visas. You know, for example, Angola 12%, Burundi 3%, Chad 13%, Congo 13%, Kenya 26%, Ghana 10%. I think you can understand where I'm going with this. We know that there is an issue with visa acceptance rates in African countries. And I know that the minister has said we're trying to improve this. What I'm wondering is if someone in the department can tell me what are the exact steps that are being taken place to try and deal with this extremely high rejection rate, predominantly from African countries. What specific steps? What plan has been implemented? Is there a review, for example?
Madam Chair, thank you very much for the question. There are a number of efforts that the department has undertaken. I will turn to Ms. Gill to outline some of the specifics in Africa because we do have quite a bit underway. I would also note that the nature of the problem and the challenge has really changed as well. We've had a tremendous volume and interest, and the situations around the world are different in different contexts. But I'll turn to Ms. Gill to provide some of the specifics in the action plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. The department is very much committed to facilitating the mobility of bona fide students. The most common reason for refusal is that the applicant is not able to show the officer that they were able to support themselves while in Canada, and thus demonstrate that they would be leaving Canada at the end of their stay. Oftentimes, this is seen in as much as the applicant is not able to show that their studies are affordable for themselves and their families. We note that in Africa in particular, that is often a core reason for refusal and is a space that the department is working to improve. In terms of what specifically the department is doing, we are looking for opportunities to improve outcomes. Programs like the Student Direct Stream, the Nigeria Express Stream as well, are ways for clients to demonstrate that they have the funds and therefore demonstrate they would be able to support their studies in Canada. In addition to that, we also do active promotion and outreach within the continent. In 2021, we had over 20 webinars and sessions with potential clients to make sure that they understood the legitimate requirements for coming to Canada and understood what was required to be submitted. In addition to that, we also provide training to our employees. All of our decision makers do unconscious bias training. In addition, for Africa, we also have them do cultural studies such that they have an awareness of the local culture and the socioeconomic conditions within various countries.
So I want to pick up one of the things you said. It seems to me that you actually track reasons for rejection, because you said the number one reason for refusal, particularly in African countries, is not able to support themselves. Do you track the reasons for rejections of student visas?
That is correct. For student permits writ large, globally, the most common reason for refusal is that they're not able to demonstrate that they can support themselves while in Canada, and thus that leads to the conclusion around not being able, the dual intent of not departing at the end of their stay as well.
Okay, so would you be willing to, or I'm going to ask you, please table, you must keep this in some document or form, can you please table what the reasons for rejections are, like what those are, the statistics on that, and if possible, are you able to, break those out for Franco-African nations?
Madame la Présidente, oui, il nous fera plaisir de...
Madam Chair, yes, we'll be happy to give the refusal rates to the committee according to different countries, as we're being asked to do. Thank you.
Refusal rates, we have those, the reasons for the refusal. Thank you very much.
Madame la Présidente.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll be happy to file that. We just have some technical problems on our side, so that's why I answered for Ms. Gill.
One thing, a curiosity that I have is with respect to Nigeria, and we know that the rejection rate has gone from 40%, the acceptance rate has gone from 40% to 12% from 2015 to 2020. And I know there's now a Nigerian Student Express stream, but there's also an English language proficiency requirement for that, the IELTS test. My understanding is Nigeria has a English as their educational language, including in post-secondary institutions. So why would there be the requirement to take this test in order to take advantage of that stream?
Sorry for interrupting. Mr. Seebeck, your time is up. Maybe you will get an opportunity in the second round to get your answer. We will now proceed to MP Ali. MP Ali, you will have 6 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the officials for being here. My first question is about the student direct stream program appears to have been very successful. The committee heard from the High Commissioner of Bangladesh about the desire to have that program available for the student from Bangladesh. Can the committee expect rapid expansion of that program to many other countries?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that question. Indeed, the student direct stream has been really beneficial in providing students with faster processing because they're providing more detailed information. It is something that we're actively looking at the expansion and considering next steps on that.
Thank you. And could you assist the committee in understanding the difference in the financial requirements between the Nigerian Student Express and the student direct stream for Nigerian students?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's an excellent question, and I'll turn to Ms. Gill in a moment for some of those specific details. One of the pieces that's really important to note is that why we engaged in the Nigerian Express was because we could see it was an important market, and that country had different conditions than other partners in the student direct stream. So a special dedicated effort was undertaken there. But Ms. Gill, perhaps you'd like to give some of the highlights to respond to the question more specifically.
Certainly, I can do so. All students, international students, regardless of which stream under the international student program they are applying through, must demonstrate that they have proof of financial support for their first year of studies. That includes both tuition and living expenses. In the SDS program, students show that by demonstrating they paid the first year of tuition with their education institution in Canada, and the GIC of 10,000. In Nigeria, we were unable to have a financial institution with a comparable product of a GIC. So we, given as my colleague Marion Campbell-Jarvis said, that is a key market for us with a significant volume of student applications. We are exploring alternate pathways to improve outcomes for Nigerian students. So the Nigeria Student Express stream allows for students to demonstrate they have the full suite of funds for their first year of tuition and living expenses. However, it's not a GIC. We don't ask them to hold it in a bank. It is simply proof of it that is verified with a local financial institution. It has, in 2021, shown remarkable improvements in acceptance rates for international students out of Nigeria. Nigerian students who are applying through this program in 2021 had an acceptance rate of 50%.
Okay, thank you. My next question is it's regarding a co-op and work permit. Students are often required to engage in a co-op or internship program as an integral part of their program of studies. Yesterday, I met with the students representing the Canadian Alliance of Student Association. One of their requests was to allow international students to participate in co-op programs without requiring them to apply for a separate work permit. If the committee were to recommend the elimination of that requirement, do you have any suggestions as to how we might frame that recommendations so that it could readily be implemented by the department?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that excellent question. That is actually something that we too have heard from some of our stakeholders. I would note that part of the challenge arises when students have not sought the work permit at the same time as the study permit, and that's why they sometimes have challenges as they go forward. We are thinking about issues facing international students, as the Minister outlined, to support the delivery of his mandate commitment in the pathway to permanent residency and some of the ways that we can facilitate the important markets. So as the Minister noted, we'd be very interested in recommendations that the committee may offer us in that regard.
Thank you. Madam Chair, how much time do I have?
45 seconds.
Okay, just gonna go quickly. We compete for international students by offering a high quality of education and by creating a path for permanent residence and citizenship after they complete their studies. The committee has heard from witnesses about immigration officers rejecting study permit application on the basis of that, of the officer is not satisfied that student will leave Canada after completing their studies. If this committee were looking for a way to eliminate or substantially reduce the rate of refusal based on the intent to stay in Canada following completion of studies, would you have any recommendation how this could be accomplished?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. It's an important one. One of the aspects that
sorry for interrupting, Ms. Campbell. Time is up for Mr. Ali. We will have to proceed to our next member. So maybe in the second round, someone can get the opportunity to ask the question again. So we will now proceed to Mr. Brunel Dessep. Mr. Brunel Dessep, you will have 6 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello again, dear witness. Welcome to this Immigration Committee. So I'm going to start with a question that's bothering me. I'm not very good at technology, but my team showed me something, and you said that Chinook is not artificial intelligence, in your opinion. That's what you said at the last committee meeting. But do you know that Microsoft presents Excel as an intelligent solution for experts and beginners? It identifies models within your data in order to organize them to help you save time. So there are models. So is that not AI? And if it's not that, is Microsoft doing false advertising? I ask you the question. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. So the way we use Chinook in immigration is for transferring information which is in our case management system, which goes into an Excel file, and we use that file to have all the information on one page in order to facilitate review of the file by our officers. So as the Minister mentioned, we'll be happy to share exactly what can be found in Chinook and to be able to respond to the needs of the committee. So the information that's transferred comes from artificial information, if I rely on what Microsoft says about Excel. So anyway, you'll send this to us. But what I understand is that there's AI integrated in Chinook because of Excel. So we'll change the subject. According to a document that we received through ATIP, which deals with implementation in 2017 of an automation system in the processing of applications for temporary residency. So the average time of processing is about 11 minutes, and I hear that you'd like that to go down to 6 minutes thanks to automation. But considering that the file for temporary residence contains about 100, 150 pages, do you think that to process this in 11 minutes or 6 minutes, is that enough? Does that allow for fair and just treatment of every application? Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. I can't really give you a position or answer this question. I don't have the details of the analysis that the member is referring to, but I'll be happy to look at that information. But it's true that now applicants can provide their applications in electronic format, which makes our work much easier. As you know, before 2017, all the applications were received in paper form. For the applications for temporary residency, everything is done electronically, so we don't have to look at all the documents page by page. We can really have, with technology, the various attachments in one file or on one screen and validate that information more quickly. But I'll be happy to look at the analysis that the member is referring to. Yes, I'll be happy to send you the information that I received from your department. And review of recent jurisprudence at federal court shows that more and more temporary applications who are refused turn to the courts to review the decision taken in their file. And there's a high percentage of those people who are successful. So people are examining the files in greater detail. So the use of automation programs and AI obviously contributes to this dehumanization in immigration. Are you aware that the Department of Justice currently is overwhelmed by cases involving study permits? Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. Certainly, the department is aware of the risk of discrimination or bias in AI systems. But we are comfortable with the instructions of the Treasury Board Secretariat. I'm sorry, I'm having problems with my system.
I'm not getting translation.
We will just check. Madam Clerk, is it from our end or from their end? I need to check. someone else can answer the question for Ms. Campbell, because I think there is some issue with her internet. Yes, Mr. Brunel Desep.
Yes, Madam Chair. It's just because at the beginning of Ms. Campbell's answer, did I understand clearly that she said that the department is aware of discrimination in artificial intelligence? Is that what she said? No, there was a problem. So please go ahead, Mr. Mills.
Mr. Mills, please go ahead.
Non, malheureusement.
No, unfortunately, Madam Chair, we have many problems with internet right now, so the sequence was maybe off. So to answer the question, I can ask the question again, but maybe Madam Chair will give me back my time, given that we had a technical problem.
Go ahead.
Okay. It's 3 more minutes. What we were saying is that there are more and more files before the courts, more and more IRCC files, and that's because the officers are no longer examining the content of the files in detail, and we see in the replies that they get that they're more general and they're similar to each other. So using an automation program in artificial intelligence obviously contributes to this dehumanization in immigration. But are you aware that the Department of Justice currently is overwhelmed by pursuits related to requests, applications for study permits and other things related to your department? Yes, thank you. We're working in collaboration with the Department of Justice, and we know that they have many applications or requests coming from our files. But I'd like to clarify that all officers making decisions on our immigration files do it with rigor, and our officers are trained and able to make these decisions on a case-by-case basis. And I wanted to say that the Chinook system does not make any decisions. All decisions are taken by our officers who are highly qualified. The reasons for refusal are often similar is that we standardized our procedures and processes so that each client can receive the same text. So these are standardized texts that we developed with the industry and with our clients so that they can be easily understood and interpreted by clients. And that's why you probably find the same criteria for refusals. So do you think that 11 minutes is enough for an officer to treat a 150-page document? And you said earlier that it's mostly programs that take care of it.
We will now proceed to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you will have 6 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the officials. Could the officials table the data on how many applications were accepted and rejected, broken down by year, stream, and country of origin, the top 5 reasons for the rejection cited prior to the use of Chinook, starting in the year 2015?
Madam Chair, we've received the request. We'll certainly do our best, but one point of clarification, Chinook would not be a reason. Chinook is a tool that our officers use. So that part of the question wouldn't really correspond, but we did note the rates of rejection by country in the top 5 reasons. And
Sorry,
we'll do our best there, Madam Chair.
Sorry, I don't know if the official misheard. I said prior to the use of Chinook. I did not say cite Chinook as a reason for rejection, but providing the top 5 reasons for rejection. I think it'll be critical for committee to get this work because the minister just said it'll be up to the committee to determine whether or not there are biases within the system. So if we don't get this data, we cannot properly understand what is going on. In conjunction to this data, could the official also table the data on how many applications the Chinook tool was used to help assess the applications broken down by the visa office, stream, country of application, year, and of those applications, how many were accepted and rejected, broken down by the year, the top 5 reasons for the rejection, the visa office, the stream, and country of application. So that would be starting when the Chinook tool was implemented and used by officials.
Madam Chair, thank you for the clarification around the Chinook tool and the usage. We've noted that and we'll take that down.
Thank you. So when the Chinook tool is being used, are officers working notes related to individual factual assessments retained or deleted from the system?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I'll turn to Ms. Gill to respond directly to that.
Thank you. In terms of the data for any officer review, whether they are doing so in Chinook, in GCMS, or on paper, the determinations that they've made, the notes of their decision, are recorded in the global case management system. And that is also where the refusal grounds and the refusal letter are retained as well. So we do not delete any of the determinations of the officer or the rationale for their decision.
Do you delete the working notes?
Could you clarify what working notes would be?
The working notes related to an individual's application. I assume that when officials look at these applications, they take notes with respect to what they're receiving. Are their working notes kept in the system or is it deleted?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. Any notes that an officer takes that is in support of assessing the application and such are recorded in GCMS. Officers may write down on the side something like on a piece of paper. However, if it is at all pertinent to the decision, it is in the system, and that is also part of the refusal grounds.
Okay. Could the officials provide the data on how many rejected applications went to federal court, broken down by year, stream, country of origin, how many actually went to a hearing, and the outcome of the federal court decision since 2015?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I'm not certain we have all of that data. That would be something that I would need to confirm with respect to the federal court. That may actually more properly be with the Department of Justice. So I'd have to confirm what we have. I'm not certain that we have that, Madam Chair.
All right, if IRCC in your department, if you don't have it, is it possible for you to request that information from Justice and provide it to the committee? The reason why I ask is that this is critical information for us to assess the entire situation of what's going on, because we've had witnesses indicate that, for example, in one area, they've looked into 26 applications that were rejected by IRCC, went to federal court, 23 of them were later accepted, as an example, and some of them did not even go to a hearing. So I think it'll be really important for us to get this information from the officials. Now, Mr. Campbell-Javas actually told us at committee that there is an IRCC playbook used as a level of oversight for bias in IRCC. Could the officials table this playbook and also provide documentation or information on how it is being used by officials?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. So the playbook is actually something that we have under development. It's still a draft. And what we're using it for is a bit of a frame and a checklist to help guide how we use a digital tool. And it sets out a number of points of consideration from bias to privacy to other considerations, a bit of a checklist. We'd be pleased to share that with the committee, keeping in mind that it's a working draft.
Thank you. And so the Chinook tool is able to truncate the information into a processing of somewhere around 6 minutes. So that means that the official is not really reading all the documents. They're relying on flag words used.
Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Kwan.
What are those flag words?
Ms. Kwan, your time is up. Maybe you will get an opportunity in the second round to ask the question again.
Madam Chair, maybe I can just ask the officials to table those flag words for committee.
Okay, thank you. We will now proceed to Mr. Hallen. Mr. Hallen, you will have 5 minutes. You can please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the officials for once again being here with us. Witnesses have testified multiple times now that at this committee that the refusal rates for African students is really high and unacceptable. There is an undertone of racism and discrimination at IRCC. And earlier in this meeting, the Minister of Immigration also indicated that Chinook is just a tool to organize case information. And he mentioned that something about it being a spreadsheet. So if an IRCC officer is not being influenced in their decision by Chinook, and if there's no algorithms in Chinook, then does the issue lie in IRCC officers being discriminatory or racist?
Thank you very much for the question, Madam Chair. Certainly, we, as the Minister emphasized earlier this morning, racism and discrimination are something that the Department is taking very seriously. Our staff are trained, and we have all taken hidden bias training. We also have efforts underway, not only the departmental-wide anti-racism task force that is addressing work across recruitment, looking at our programs and policies, and our service delivery as well. We also have a number of networks, including in Africa, and I'd be pleased to turn to Ms. Gill for more details on that, about how we are taking a Pan-African approach to our work. So we have a lot underway, and we are very committed to addressing systemic racism in the system.
Madam Chair, to the officials, I mean, the public has not seen any difference, and from when that report was publicized until now, neither were any documents, anything given to the public that this issue is being tackled. Were there any changes before that report and to now? Were there any changes in how people were being trained? Or is there anything that's happening after that report was tabled?
Thank you very much for the question. I think, as the Minister noted this morning, the events around George Floyd were really a calling and a wake-up call for many of us. I mean, I think we were awake prior as well, but that was really a call to action. And we've set up an anti-racism task force that you've been hearing about, and we've been tracking. So the first survey that you're speaking about was the first one that we've undertaken. And so that really is a baseline. And that surfaced that there are some concerns and there are some challenges.
Were any results? Were there any results from that first report? If this anti-racism committee has been struck, were any results? Have we seen any?
Madam Chair, thank you. Yes, in terms of results, so there's a few things that we have put in place already, and we also have a number of areas that we've launched work. So
can we please have those tabled?
So what we are looking at, Madam Chair, is we are looking at our evaluation practices, we're looking at our data frameworks, we're looking at our policy frameworks, at our gender-based GBA plus analysis. We've developed a tool to help us assess systemic racism through our policy that we're piloting. And I know there are some areas that my colleagues in operations, perhaps Mr. Mills, would like to allude to in his space in operations, where we have advanced significant work as well.
Can we just have that information tabled? I wanted to move on to other rounds of questions. So if we can please have that tabled about what kind of changes after the report was done and what's currently being worked on and how. I think that's very important to note. When it comes to Chinook, we've heard over and over again that it seems like a very discriminatory kind of program. Specifically, were any consultations done at all, and with who, before Chinook was implemented?
I'll turn to Ms. Gill to give us some information on the Chinook system.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. As mentioned in earlier testimonies as well, Chinook is an Excel-based software, and since Excel is used widely and for a variety of purposes across the department, and it has not changed how applications are processed. So we don't actually provide lists of the software right now. So that is what was, as it's not a processing automated decision-making tool.
Sorry
it is
for
effectively a
interrupting,
way
Ms.
to
Gill.
view information. Thank you.
Ms. Gill, time is up. We will now proceed to Mr. Dhaliwal. Mr. Dhaliwal, you will have 5 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, it is important to differentiate Francophone immigration in Quebec and rest of Canada. I would like the assistant or senior assistant deputy minister to explain the major points of the outside of Quebec Francophone immigration plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. I'm delighted that Ms. Corinne Prince is here with us, and I know she would like to speak to Francophone immigration strategy that we have underway.
Merci, Madame la Présidente, pour la question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question.
In fact, in 2019, the department developed a comprehensive Francophone immigration strategy, which incorporates elements along the entire immigration continuum. We start with promotion and attraction in our overseas missions, focusing on Francophone source countries, with Destination Canada, which is an annual foire d'emploi every year to really attract and promote Canada as a destination of choice. That then moves on through this continuum to our selection tools. Our minister and my colleagues have mentioned several times express entry, which is an important tool for economic streams. We know over the past years, it has been demonstrated that we can obtain that economic streams bear the most fruit. So if we want to bring in more and more Francophone immigrants, then we need to use economic streams to do it. And that's why in 2020, we raised the points for both Francophone applicants and bilingual applicants in express entry. And in fact, that simple change raised the invitations to apply to 8.8% in November of that year, which was a full 3.8 percentage points higher than in October of that year. So just in 1 month, the applications increased significantly. We are looking at in embedding Francophone immigration in our regional pilots, the Atlantic immigration pilot, the rural and northern immigration pilot, as colleagues in the department are developing the municipal nominee program with provinces and territories. We too are looking at embedding Francophone immigration in that upcoming pilot as well. I won't forget to note that provincial nominee programs are extremely important in attracting and landing Francophone candidates. Many of our provincial jurisdictions have targets, and so we are working closely with them and encourage them to use their PNP programs to bring in more and more Francophone candidates. In fact, the recent levels plan that was tabled by our minister on Monday of this week, you will see an increase in the PNP spaces, and we do hope that provinces will rise to the challenge to bring in more and more Francophones. So right through to settlement and integration services, which is an area of expertise, I can tell you that we have increased the toolbox over the past several years. We have moved from funding 50 Francophone organizations to over 80 Francophone organizations outside of Quebec. That includes spending of at least $61 million on Francophone services. We have worked closely with the Francophone community to establish 14 welcoming Francophone communities across the country. And I'm very proud that we did that by asking the communities themselves to determine what community they would want to be the welcoming community. This was not determined by the department or the government. It was in fact a recommendation from the Francophone communities themselves. So that I think is a model in terms of stakeholder consultations. In addition to that, we have implemented a pre-arrival program for Francophone entrants. This is a project working with 5 Francophone organizations representing all areas of the country outside of Quebec. And this has increased the arrival of Francophone candidates who are more or who are up to date in terms of what Canada offers, understanding the labor market much better. And we have, this has,
sorry for interrupting, Ms. Prince.
Madam Chair, I could only ask one question. If I can ask the panel to submit in writing, because she mentioned about the PNP program.
Yes,
and in BC, Madam Chair,
Mr. Dhaliwal, your time is up. So would you like something for the officials to be like table something?
Yes, that's
okay.
correct.
So
that's
if the officials
but
can...
I want officials, because officials mentioned the PNP program, and BC, when we talk about the BC, vast majority of Francophone immigrants are in BC, and can they table what are they going to do to provide them the settlement services that are only offered to PR right now?
Thank you, Mr. Dhaliwal. We will now proceed to Mr. Brunel Dessep for 2.5 minutes. Mr. Brunel Dessep.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And will I get 30 seconds more like Mr. Dhaliwal? So, Ms. Campbell, you were telling us something that's very interesting just before your technical problem. And I'll quote you word for word. We went to check as to what you said. You said, certainly the department is aware of the risks of the problems of discrimination with AI. And right after you said, we're comfortable with that. So I'm wondering how we can be comfortable with a risk of discrimination within a department. So I had difficulty understanding that. Maybe I wasn't following. Thank you, Madam Chair, especially for the opportunity to take this on again. We're not comfortable with discrimination, but we are comfortable with the guidelines published by the Treasury Board Secretariat, which created a set of guidelines.
Projects that I'm proud to say RCC was one of the first departments to sign on with TBS's AI guidelines, and that's what we're following.
But you said that there was a risk. You're aware of that there's a risk of discrimination with AI. And right after you said you're comfortable with that risk. That's what we understood. So I'm a bit concerned because not only one thinks there's a risk, but we see that there's evidence of discrimination. It's no longer a risk. It's no longer only a risk. And now I'm sorry if you can hear the horns honking. I'm right next to Wellington Street. It's You've said that the department in some way accepts that there is a risk of discrimination. And as I've said, we can see it. There's evidence that there's a huge disparity between Francophone foreign students from certain countries in West Africa. So I think there are many students from West Africa who will wonder, is it worth that I apply in Canada? Because it's not... Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. Certainly there are several components to the last question. First of all, we are aware that there is a risk in the field of technology within intelligence systems, that there may be bias. So we take measures in order to minimize risk. But for the moment, there's another question in terms of the process for international students. And certainly, I can turn to my colleague for that, who can describe it in greater detail.
Time is up. We will now proceed to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you will have 2.5 minutes for your round of questioning.
Before I was cut off from the last round, I was asking officials for the word flags for the Chinook tool. Could the officials please confirm that they can provide the committee with what those word flags are?
I would turn to my colleague, Ms. Gill, to speak about the operationalization of the Chinook system and your question about red flags, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. Whether an officer is reviewing an application in Chinook, in GCMS, or on paper, we always indicate factual information for the officer's awareness. For example, a flag is not necessarily a negative statement. It could be positive as well. So word indicators could be things like the person is coming for a wedding, funeral. In addition, if they're coming for a set conference, such that there is awareness for officers of a conference, and we do that even in the global case management system, and also for officers to be aware of the information that the client has presented.
The officials table those word indicators or word flags for the committee's consideration and information. It's a yes or no answer, really.
Madame la Présidente, on va prendre la question, on va voir ce qui est possible.
Madam Chair, we'll take this question and we'll see what we can disclose. You have to take into consideration the integrity of the program, so we'll see which indicators we can share with the committee members.
Really interested in the word flags that are being used for the Chinook system, because it will also advise the committee or give a sense of the committee whether or not those particular word flags could have biases incorporated in them, especially in light of the fact of the Polera report, where racist attitudes and stereotype attitudes has been displayed by officials. And since it's officials who developed the Chinook tool, and it was not consulted with outsiders, it was an internal system, then how it was developed and what word flags have been used to flag applications, whether for approval or rejection, would be important to note, and so that we can see whether or not those word flags has any indication towards issues of stereotypical attitudes and racist attitudes. So I would ask officials to please table that information. I also like to ask officials, to what extent did the assumptions about the home country, the family that might be coming, and the economic conditions of the country that they're leaving prejudice the decision?
Ms. Kwan, sorry for interrupting. Time is up, so
maybe then, Madam Chair, I could ask the officials to table that information for the committee, if I can get a confirmation from officials that they would table that information.
Madam Chair, I'm not sure we had information that sort of tables it in the way that the question was asked to us.
Well, maybe you could answer the question in writing to the committee then. Thank you.
Mr. Reddy-Kopias, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. There's been a significant amount of discussion around racism in this meeting and in previous meetings, and so I have a motion that I would like to move, Madam Chair, that whereas officials from the Department of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada have appeared at the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration on the dates of February 15th and February 17th, 2022, the committee send for all briefing notes, memos, and emails from senior officials prepared for the Minister and Deputy Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship regarding biases or racism within the department, and action plan and or timelines to address said biases or racism, that the committee receive the information no later than Wednesday, March 30th, 2022, that matters of cabinet confidence and national security be excluded from the request, and that any redactions to protect the privacy of Canadian citizens and permanent residents whose names and personal information may be included in the documents, as well as public servants who have been providing assistance on this matter, be made by the Office of the Law Clerk and Parliamentary Counsel of the House of Commons, and that these documents be posted on the committee's webpage. I've submitted this to the clerk as well, and there's translations as well.
Have all the members received the motion in both the languages? Madam Madam Clerk, have you emailed it to all the members? Ms. Kwan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would certainly support the motion that's been tabled. I think it is important for us to get this information to get to have a better understanding of what's going on within IRCC and the concerns that I think we all share.
Mr. Al-Khouri.
Yes, sorry, please. Madam Chair, I would like, j'aimerais recevoir dans les dons.
I would like to receive the motion in both official languages.
Emailing it to all the members. Mr. Brunel de Sepp.
Bon, c'est la folie de...
So, I would like to receive it in French. That's all I wanted. I still haven't received it. I have to read it in French.
I'll suspend the meeting for 2 minutes so to make sure that the members receive the motion.
We did.
Madame la Présidente,
Madam Chair, time is passing, and it's a motion for which we have to take a right decision. And personally, I have other parliamentary obligation, and I'm wondering if it's possible to postpone the study of this motion to our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This motion essentially asks for information, and given the gravity of the situation, I think it's very important for us to obtain that information so we can properly assess it, incorporate that understanding into the work of this committee. So I would absolutely support this motion.
Mr. Brunel de Sepp. Mr. Brunel de Sepp.
Désolé.
Sorry. I hadn't done that for a long time. So, Madam Chair, we could thank our witnesses who have been very kind for us and who've had a big day. Maybe they don't need to be listening to our debate on a motion. I'm just proposing this. You're the chair. But in terms of the motion itself, whether we discuss it at our next meeting or today, between you and I think there's a majority of members who will be voting for it. So I'm very happy to accept it today, and that would close that. And I see... Oui, Monsieur Brunel de Sepp. So, yes. So I was saying that in any case, I see that the NDP, the Conservatives, and the Bloc are in favor of this motion. I think it's important. And whether we discuss it at the next meeting or today, it will pass. It will be, so let's do it right away. It will be dealt with, and it will allow our witnesses to go and discuss things around their lunch and rest a bit.
Ms. Kwan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to call a vote on the motion, please.
Okay. Yes. Madam Clerk, if you can get the vote.
The vote is on.
Sorry, Madam Chair, could it be a recorded vote, please?
Yes, the clerk of the committee is going to take the vote. Madam Clerk, if you can take the vote.
Recorded vote.
Yeah, recorded vote.
The vote is on the motion of Mr. Redekop. Mr. Ali.
Yes, I support the motion.
Mr. Dhaliwal.
Yes, I support the motion.
Mr. El Khoury.
Yes, please.
Ms. Kayabaga.
Je vote oui.
Madame Lalonde.
Je vote oui.
Ms. Falk.
Yes.
Mr. Halan.
Yes.
Mr. Redekop.
I support.
Mr. Seaback.
Oui.
Mr. Brunel du Sepp.
Je vote oui.
Ms. Kwan.
Yes.
12. So 12 yeas. So the motion is adopted. So I will read the motion. Whereas officials from Department of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada have appeared at the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration on the dates of February 15th and February 17, 2022. The committee sent for all briefing notes, memos, and emails from senior officials prepared for the Minister and Deputy Minister of Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship regarding biases or racism within the department and action plan or timelines to address said biases or racism, that the committee received the information no later than Wednesday, March 30th, 2022, that matters of cabinet confidence and national security be excluded from the request, and that any reductions to protect the privacy of Canadian citizens and permanent residents whose names and personal information may be included in the documents, as well as public servants who have been providing assistance on this matter, be made by the Office of the Law Clerk and Parliamentary Counsel of the House of Commons, and that these documents be posted on the committee's web page. The motion is adopted. So I would like to thank our officials for appearing before the committee today. Just a few reminders for the members of this committee. On March 1st, we will conclude this study with one last panel and then the drafting instructions. The Minister has kindly confirmed that he is available to appear for the estimates on Thursday, March 3rd. As mentioned in the last meeting, Minister will return on March 24th on the study of differential outcomes. A reminder that prioritized witness list for the study on differential outcomes is due tomorrow to the clerk of the committee. Is it the pleasure of the committee to adjourn the meeting? Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.